And here we go. Welcome back, everybody, to Stacks About the Numbers. And you know me, I just had to do a little update real quick on Supermicro Computer Incorporated, ticker symbol SMCI, listed here on the NASDAQ. This is one that obviously we've been on for quite some time. I'm not going back down, that trail. You guys can go back. You could look at previous updates. I am still personally bullish on the stock. Caught a lot of slack in the comments, and we can see that as expected, the stock has rebounded up above these trend lines one step at a time, and we can see now close $33.15, up almost 3.5 points today, over 11.6%. Some say it's on the heels of the Nvidia news, even though people try to bash SMCI because Nvidia had to step away from SMCI with business. But yeah, listen, it's fine. However you want to interpret it, it's entirely up to you. But also we can do something like this on this trend line. What are we looking at? 96.33, 96.33. We can come down to like there as well, like connecting to that previous top, and you can see we're technically above that trend line. And, I'm just drawing out some lines here, having some fun with it. 96.33. How about down to that trend line right there, the top of that one? You see what I did right there? And we can see that technically, again, we are above this trend line, which looked like about 32.65, 32.80 maybe, somewhere in that range. But we can see technically the stock closed up above 33. So we got up above this trend line and obviously bounced and kept climbing off of the 20-day moving average. So the next stop could very well be about $38, $39. And we were talking about kind of getting right back to this level here of about 37 and a half, maybe $38 and change. So that's why, in my opinion, that may be the next stop. I know some people some people want to keep harping on, not necessarily harping, maybe bad choice of words, but they're consistently reminding everyone that, again, technically they submitted the plan to the NASDAQ. Oh, it hasn't been approved. They have this extension going. In my opinion, I just think there's too much value here for them to kind of let this slip through their fingers. And that's why I personally felt that they were probably going to maintain their NASDAQ listing and they were going to kind of try to ride through this storm. And again, we had the news of them submitting the plan to the NASDAQ, and that's what kind of forced this surge going on. Because again, if people say like, after this DOJ investigation, we try to go down the potential prediction lane. But again, if they're hit with a big fine or I don't know. Or if they say like, oh, you shouldn't do business with your brother-in-law anymore or whatever the situation is over there, right? Depending on the result we get, again, it may be very short-lived. And I understand people are like, oh, that's crazy. They had the auditor issue and then they almost got delisted on the NASDAQ. And now we might find out that they were doing something shady at the, conclusion of this investigation. Like, how can you still be bullish? And believe me, I do understand that argument. Because we've seen time and time again, even when we like a company, in the numbers, in the story, sometimes, it just doesn't work out. Whether it's the company's fault or, whether it's some sort of outside catalyst. So we know that even if we have high conviction on a situation, nothing is guaranteed. Anything can happen. There goes my keyboard again. But what I'm saying is, we came down, right? We hit these lows, what, at like 17 and a quarter. So let's say hypothetically, like we're slowly churning along. Let's say we get to like 13, whatever, and we hit this line, and then we like pull back to like, 32, 33. And then let's say hypothetically, the DOJ comes out and yeah, they made some mistakes. Let's say they hit him again, like I said, with like a big fine or something like that. Yes, chances are on that news, boom, you're going to drop potentially right back down. You understand? Because it's going to be viewed as such a big negative. So anyone who got in on this dip and gave them a shot here in the short term, once that news hits, they're all going to jump ship, secure those profits, and now let the market digest that news for whatever, a week or two, and then they'll go bottom feeding again, in my opinion. But that's why I'm saying, again, if you kind of like bought on the way up and then yeah, we get like some negative news, boom, we chunk back down. As I said, in my opinion, depending on what the result is, unless we come excuse me, unless we come to the conclusion that SMCI, as I said, has to close its doors or suspend doing business with everyone it's currently doing, and has to like restart no, excuse me, or has to like restart and revamp those relationships again. If something like that takes place, then I can understand jumping the fence, being bearish on the situation. That's why I said, even though technically we had like a revenue miss here, 5.95 billion, estimates were about 6.33 billion. That's why, unless we find out that, they were literally cooking the books and this is like 1.2 billion, which in my opinion, I seriously doubt, because the company has seen steady, consistent growth for a while, not just, over the last 12 months since everyone tried to put it in the crosshairs. We're talking like steady growth, really, for years and years and years. And again, even when this happened back in 2018, the company got delisted and then they kept growing, and then they got relisted. And then from the point they got relisted, the stock has been on the up and up. And people are talking about it. Oh, it's going to be a big player in the AI space. It's necessary. They're working with NVIDIA. They're working with a lot of other big tech names. They're viewed as kind of like a necessity in the AI space and the surging demand. And that's why we saw the numbers go from whatever, 4 billion to 7 billion to 15 billion, 28 billion. They're riding the coattails of the AI surge and demand that's coming from NVIDIA and trickling down to the rest of the sector, really. Right? So that's why I'm saying, in my opinion, when you have that kind of growth in your business and you're seeing that kind of demand, like, holy crap, we just went from 7 billion to freaking 15 billion, you're not gonna let that opportunity slip through your fingers. You understand? That's why, again, I know I may have like still been bullish here at 45 and then it freaking tanked down to 17, so I look like a schmuck. I understand all of that. But again, if regardless of this short-term volatility, this stock drops down to 10, in my opinion, I don't care. Because if they're still going to see demand, they're still able to do business as they were doing before, they're still going to see the surge in forecast and future guidance, future business growth. As I said, if they don't have to if they're not forced to shut down their doors, if they don't get delisted off the NAS, I mean, you're really pulling for a lot of big negatives that have to take place for you to kind of prove that this stock develops into a piece of crap. And again, I know some may say, it's wishful thinking. I mean, listen, again, in my opinion, I literally just laid out from a business perspective all of the negatives that I feel have to come to fruition in order for us to say, okay, this is a complete screwball of a stock. Numbers were BS'd. They weren't seeing this demand. Now they're, not allowed to do business in the U.S. or something, right? You understand what I'm saying? We need a huge, massive negative like that to destroy this situation. And if we don't get it, then yeah, as I said, if it runs up and then pulls back to 30 and change, and then we get news of a negative conclusion, boom, that drops us down to 15 new lows or whatever. As I said, at this point, if they're still able to do business as they were doing, and, obviously they're able to keep their doors open, maybe, hopefully no one goes to jail, and, they maintain their listing on the NASDAQ. That's what I mean. At this point, I would absolutely be a buyer. Because if we fast forward 6 months, and let's just say they maintain NASDAQ listing and the numbers weren't fudged, then if we look at the business overall, yeah, that's why I'm still bullish on it and think it will slowly come back up as more and more of this news gets behind it. But that's just me. That's just my opinion. But yeah, technically, next trend line, high 38s, maybe 39 over the next week or so. We'll see. Because again, technically we had this trend line coming across here, looks like about, like 3260, 3270, and we can see the stock closed above 33. So we may still be on the up and up here with SMCI. Let's look at stock charts real quick. I'll let you go. We can see the RSI completely bottomed out, and even after this big surge, we're only sitting here basically middle of the road here at 53. And again, I was saying, in my opinion, a retracement back to this 50-day would actually be justified. And again, that would come back to the bottom of these wicks, the bottom of these the bodies of these candles, excuse me, would be about the low 38s. And we can see again the 50-day moving average, 38.16. We have that trend line I drew out, 38. 50, 60, 70, kind of in that range. So that's why, in my opinion, we may continue to climb and we may retest that moving average of 38. We also had the MACD recently cross to the upside. That's adding on the situation. People were waiting for NVIDIA earnings. NVIDIA came out. They posted strong numbers. Now they say, right, that big surge kind of lifts all boats. So we had a lot of big tech runs today kind of across the board. Even some quantum computing names were up consistently. But in my opinion, I think it does get back to 38. And it might have a hard rejection, like we said, back to 32, 33, one of those other trend lines. But right now, I feel like a lot of people bought that big dip. And then when they saw it climb and they heard, oh, what, they submitted the plan to the NASDAQ, they might not get delisted. That's when, some people jumped in at 24, 27, and now they're kind of riding this wave back up. So that's why, in my opinion, we'll probably bring it up in the short term for the traders back to that 70 benchmark on the daily RSI, and then have a nice hard rejection. But again, either way, I said, especially in the numbers, I'll say it for the nth time, unless we hear like they cannot do business anymore, or they need to, they lost 90% of their clients because of what happened, right? Unless we get a big business changing announcement like that, then technically stock is massively undervalued in the numbers. And that's why we had people adding here on these big drops, and then even sub 20. There were people who even felt the company might be guilty, who were saying at 17, 18, oh no, that's wild, I'm going to buy it. And then, of course, we got a little bit of positive news. Boom, stock instantly is back at, 24, 25. Bang, they're in, they're out. They just made out, like animals. So that's why even people who were pessimistic about the situation felt this was an overreaction down here as well. So that's why, to bring the stock back into the 30s and the 40s, in my opinion, that's justified. And right now, that may be like the quote unquote hesitant fair value that Wall Street wants to keep it at until we get past this investigation, right? But yeah, that's what's going on the daily. We'll look at the weekly and we can see, yeah, RSI on the weekly was right at that 30 benchmark. And then that's when we had the bounce this week with some good news coming out. Stock up well above that 200-day moving average here at 33. And again, you might run into see like that resistance line coming down, I believe is about that 38 mark potentially. So that's why it might pause there, but even a run back to 49, the mid-Bollinger Band, could be very feasible in my opinion. And again, I was saying that in my opinion, the bullish momentum will continue and we will potentially flatten out and start to see that curl now on the MACD. And you see that completely flattened MACD now, potentially ready to do one of these. So we'll see. I mean, if it does maintain momentum and keep getting above, these key breakpoints, I mean, we may see a run back to 50, 60 and change. Who knows? Who knows? In my opinion, long term again, personal price target over $200 a share until I hear otherwise. Also had that key break, pivot point, 2368. Right around that moving average. We're well above that. Next resistance level 40, 45. So again, we could make maybe a run back to that 40 level. Kind of retest some of those moving averages, that mid-Bollinger Band. We'll see. We'll see. Here on the daily, pivot point 35.65. So we may pause there as well. But again, the RSI technically is in their favor. So even though it just went on a massive surge, it also did just get oversold consistently for a couple of weeks. So that's why now it really may rebound. And even again, I still say even back into the 40s, I think it's feasible. I think it's feasible. This was a massive overreaction. Remember, if the recent negative headlines didn't come out with this BS short report, in my opinion, if all of that didn't happen, this stock would have channeled sideways as it did and then broke up with the rest of the market and the rest of the tech sector. You know it and I know it. So, of course, it's unforeseen, unfortunate circumstances that are out of our control, but in my opinion, 38 conservatively. 38 conservatively. And that's pretty much it. We have any news recently in the last day or two? Yeah, largest weekly gain, but what I say, after it rages back up and climbs to the 30s and the 40s, then they'll start talking about how good it is, right? Supermicro's up 84% in a week. Is it still a buy? Question mark. It's like, get out of here. It's having its best week ever. SMCI compared to Nike. Well, we have a domestic tech company that's seeing a massive surge in demand off of the AI boom. And we have another company that makes products overseas that are probably going to see beefed up tariffs now under the Trump administration rolling into 2025. So, of these two that got beaten up, yeah, in my opinion, I'd rather buy SMCI personally. Yep, now it's the best performer. Delisting fears remain as volatile week closes. Delisting fears remain. Delisting fears remain. Jeez. Talking about harping on a negative, right? Okay. Yep, they brought in BDO for their auditor. Yeah, intuitive machine. That's Lunar, right? I know a couple of people were asking about that. I'll try to get to that next week. My apologies. Mm, see, that's what I mean. These companies, even with the negatives, depending on the sector, depending on the players behind it, it may not matter. And you can see, even as they mentioned something like that. I mean, technically, this was a negative back in 2006, as you can see. The corporation paid $150,000 punishment and admitted guilt in 2006 for exporting computer equipment to Iran, therefore breaching a U.S. ban. And of course, again, they re-mention good old Hindenburg, our white knight of the market. But you can see again that these, as bad as they were in the moment, were technically, and I know it's hindsight, but you can see that technically these are just kind of short-term speed bumps. They had this big guilty BS back in 2006, sending crap to Iran. I don't know why they did that. Paid 150 grand in punishment, right? Drop in the bucket. But the company was still able to be open and still able to conduct business, right? Then we fast forward to what, 2017, 2018, delisted off the NASDAQ, ran into some other accounting BS, had to fire some people, stock went down, got delisted, Steam friend again, my apologies. Stock went down, got delisted, but again, the business was able to stay open. They weren't banned from doing business, and they just kept churning along, chugging along. And then before you know it, the stock is up, and then they're back on the NASDAQ, and then they're climbing again. Now they're running into another issue. So granted, if you want to bring this up as maybe not the most ethically moral company, I obviously can agree, because apparently we run into these issues every handful of years, it sounds like, with SMCI. But again, if we're talking about just like the actual business and the growth and the surge in revenue that we were seeing and forecasted to get, that's why I'm saying I'd probably still stick to my guns here. And even if this is a much larger figure, again, even if they're fined $15 million, let's say, at the end of the investigation, as I said, will the stock take a big hit? Will it piss everyone off? Yes, of course, it's a negative. But again, once it bottoms out, if it still remains on the NASDAQ, and that's kind of all that came out of that investigation was a fine, then yeah, chances are it's slowly going to start rising over time as the company continues to, report increasing earnings, and analysts are going to upgrade their price targets, and yada, 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 so forth and so on, right? So, again, I know some people may be looking at their past, and again, we're all different. We're all different. If you're seeing a couple of negatives that they kind of dealt with in the past, and you just kind of don't trust them, then go with your gut. If you don't trust them, go with your gut. right? Because I understand it's all about making money, being right, growing your account. I understand that. But for all of my larger players out there, you know as well as I do, it's about being able to sleep well at night, not being stressed, not losing sleep over worrying about a position. So at the end of the day, whether the stock takes a hit and drops to new lows of 15, or if it climbs and you missed out and it goes back to 50, 60, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, right? Because it's your money, it's your life. So, as we say, if it's too much stress, too much anxiety, you don't trust it for whatever reason, just don't do it. You're better off. Just don't do it. And again, a year from now, if the storm passed and, everything's all right and it seems like, it's just going to keep going, then maybe you can buy it if it makes you more comfortable, right? Because, like we say, at the end of the day, it's about you. It's about doing what you believe and what you feel comfortable in doing. So, just because I like it doesn't mean anything. As I always say, this is just my opinion. Again, if you like it, you jump in, great. If you don't like it, you don't want to jump in, great. Again, I don't take any of this personal. I just wanted to talk about SMCI and some updates here in the technicals that I see. That's it. But I think that's pretty much it. So I will end it there. Once again, this is Stocks by the Numbers. I want to thank you for stopping by. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, drop it down in the comment section. I'm usually pretty quick to reply. Thumbs up algorithm helps me get more eyes on the channel. And of course, subscribe to the channel. That is our handshake agreement. That is how you help me help you. But of course, more importantly, moving forward, like I always say, I understand that markets are rocky, they're volatile, and they're very uncertain. So I want to wish all of you success. I hope everyone makes a couple of dollars. Thank you for your time. Have a good weekend.